I want to turn to something else now, and that's the new White House press secretary, Kayleigh. She held a briefing on Friday, and this is right after President Trump said he would override governors if they didn't open houses of worship right away. A number of reporters asked on what basis, under what authority, the president could override governors and make them open houses of worship, and that led to this exchange. Take a look.
What specific provision of federal law allows the president to override a governor's
The president
decision?
will strongly encourage every governor to allow their churches to reopen. And boy, it's interesting to be in a room that desperately wants to seem to see these churches and houses of worship stay closed.
The president said that he has that.
Kayleigh, I object to that. I mean, I go to church. I'm dying to go back to church.
Donna, I spent 6 years in the White House briefing room covering Ronald Reagan. I have to say, I never, and in the years since too, I never saw a White House press secretary act like that.
Communities to reopen.
The president said he's going to override the governors. Under what authority would he do that? And to your point, he said several weeks ago, this is all up to the governors.
Well, I think you're posing a hypothetical, and I think we can all hope that we see governors.
Would override the governors.
You're posing a hypothetical, though. You're assuming that governors are going to keep churches shut down and keep mosques shut down and keep synagogues shut down. That is a hypothetical question, and we will leave it to these faith communities to reopen.
And said if governors don't
We'll
listen
leave
to
it to
him,
faith
he's gonna
communities to
override their
reopen.
authority.
And Kristen, I think we can all hope that this Sunday people are allowed to pray to their gods across this country. That's a good thing. And I'd also note there's detailed guidance in here about the way that you can clean your facilities, promote social distancing. So this is something that we should all look at and be thankful that we are encouraging these faith communities to reopen and do so in a safe way. And we'll leave it to parishes to open in a safe fashion.
What
Yes.
authority is the president referencing?
Does the White House now support these churches that are defying governor's orders and opening up?
The president's been very clear. He wants churches to reopen. He wants them to do it safely. He wants them to do it in accordance with our guidance. It's laid out very detailed. It's posted now, so you can all take a look through it. And he wants to see all of those churches open in a safe fashion.
If the governor does not allow that, does the White House support churches defying these executive orders?
The president's been very clear. He wants to see churches reopen in accordance with his guidelines.
The answer is yes?
I just gave you an answer. The president would like churches to reopen and do it in accordance with the
What
guidelines.
specific provision of federal law allows the president to override a governor's
The president
decision?
will strongly encourage every governor to allow their churches to reopen. And boy, it's interesting to be in a room that desperately wants to seem to see these churches and houses of worship stay closed.
The president said
Yes,
that he has that.
Kayleigh, I object to that. I mean, I go to church. I'm dying to go back to church. The question that we're asking you and would like to have asked the president and Dr. Birx is it safe? And if it's not safe, is the president trying to encourage that, or does the president agree with Dr. Birx that people should wait?
Jeff, it is safe to reopen your churches if you do so in accordance with the guidelines, which are laid out very stringent detail here about promoting hygiene practices, and there are 5 bullet points, and cloth face coverings. If social distancing is not possible, it's recommended. Intensifying cleanings, promoting social distance, we lay them out meticulously. So I am thankful that we have a president that celebrates the First Amendment. The same amendment that gives you all the ability to ask me questions is there to have the freedom of worship, so imams and pastors can go to their churches, can go to their places of worship, and can celebrate what is a First Amendment right in this country, which is to pray to your God and to practice your faith.
And we celebrate that too. I just want to follow up by saying we celebrate that too.
And so we
Certainly
should be
the First
thankful that there are
Amendment
guidelines
part.
to
But we're
allow
not-
us to
but we're not
re-engage in
asking-
that behavior.
We're not asking you if the president or people are allowing Americans to pray. That's not the
To
question
gather
that people
in their
are
places
asking
of
here.
worship, to attend church services, to pray together. And the president has laid out a clear path. The CDC has laid out a clear path for this to take place, for our First Amendment to be exercised in a way that is safe and robust.
I never, and in the years since too, I never saw a White House press secretary act like that.
You know, I know Kayleigh, and I think she's an extraordinary person. But this combative, this posture that she has taken into the job, I don't think is the right posture.
And then McEnany, who has been in the White House for a few weeks, started lecturing reporters, telling reporters who have been covering politics for many years what questions they should be asking, in this case about Michael Flynn. Take a look at this.
If I write them out in a slide format, maybe we're visual learners and you guys will follow up with journalistic curiosities. Why was Lieutenant General Michael Flynn unmasked? Not by the intel community entirely, but by Obama's chief of staff, by the former Vice President Joe Biden, by Susan Rice, by the Treasury Secretary. I mean, this is extraordinary.
We had an interesting article from Joel Pollak this morning, and I would like to ask you if the president has considered pardoning President Obama for illegally wiretapping on Trump Towers, illegally spying on U.S. citizens, and other potential crimes out there. Has he considered that?
So I have not spoken to the president about that, but who I did speak to about President Obama and unmasking Michael Flynn were the men and women in this room. I haven't spoken to him on that specific point, have spoken to him about the matter generally, and I laid out a series of questions that any good journalist would want to answer about why people were unmasked, and all sorts of questions. And I just wanted to follow up with you guys on that. Did anyone take it upon themselves to pose any questions about Michael Flynn and unmasking the President Obama spokesperson? Oh, not a single journalist has posed that question.
But
okay.
Michael Flynn's name wasn't
so
masked.
I would like
Kayleigh,
to lay out a series of questions, and perhaps if I write them out in a slide format, maybe we're visual learners and you guys will follow up with journalistic curiosity. So number one, why did the Obama administration use opposition research funded by a political organization and filled with foreign dirt to surveil members of the Trump campaign? Number two, why was Lieutenant General Michael Flynn unmasked? Not by the intel community entirely, but by Obama's chief of staff, by the former Vice President Joe Biden, by Susan Rice, by the Treasury Secretary. I mean, this is extraordinary. And, you know, if it were political appointees in the Trump administration, I can guarantee you I'd have questions in my inbox right now, but apparently Obama's spokesperson does not. Why was Flynn's identity leaked? In a criminal act. It is a criminal act to leak the identity of Michael Flynn to the press, but it happened. Where are the questions to Obama's spokesperson? Because my team would be running around this building should this have happened under the Trump administration. Why did the DOJ, Sally Yates, learn about the unmasking from President Obama? So much for going by the book. As Susan Rice said 3 times, thou doth protest too much, Susan Rice. And then finally, question number 5. Why did James Clapper, John Brennan, Samantha Power, and Susan Rice privately admit under oath they had no evidence of collusion while saying the opposite publicly? It's a long weekend. You guys have 3 days to follow up on those questions, and I certainly hope the next time I ask, some hands go up, because Obama's spokesperson should be asked those questions, because President Trump's spokespeople certainly would be.
Jonah, first of all, it's not extraordinary. Unmasking is pretty routine. The effort by people in an administration to find out who a masked American person is. It happens in the Trump White House. It happened, I think, 16,000 times the year before last. What's a crime is leaking it, but unmasking isn't. In addition to which, I have to say that if Kayleigh McEnany had told Sam Donaldson and me what questions we should ask, that would not have gone well, Jonah.
Mr. President, in talking about the continuing recession tonight, you have blamed mistakes of the past, and you have blamed the Congress. Does any of the blame belong to you?
Yes, because for many years I was a Democrat. On another trip, the government of Indonesia gave us these gifts, and they're our friends. Actually, I love this shirt. I finally found something louder than Sam Donaldson.
Yeah, look, it's nice to see Donna so deferential to Kayleigh McEnany. I think her behavior is indefensible and grotesque. And I think that what she has done is there's this cliche in Washington that President Trump wants a Roy Cohn as DOJ. As the Attorney General. What Donald Trump wants in a press secretary is a Twitter troll who goes on attack, doesn't actually care about doing the job they have, and instead wants to impress an audience of one and make another part of official Washington another one of these essentially cable news and Twitter gladiatorial arenas. And it's a sign of the defining of deviancy down in our politics, and it's only going to make things worse.
Josh, in the time we got left, you know, the White House press secretary is always a complicated job. They work for the White House, but they're paid by taxpayers. They are public officials. And Kayleigh McEnany isn't acting like she is working for the public. She acts like she is what she used to be, which is a spokesperson for the Trump campaign.
Yeah, look, Chris, I just disagree. I think Kayleigh's doing a nice job. And what's missing from this conversation that we've had this morning is the context by which she is making these statements. I think that any spokesperson in the Trump world, whether it's in the White House or the campaign, finds themselves under constant attack by the press. The confrontational nature by which journalists approach the questioning is not really to obtain much information so much as to try to back them into the corner. And I think Kayleigh said, I'm not going to play that game. And so, yeah, it is completely different than what we've seen from years and years of briefings from press secretaries. But I think it's reflective of the nature that we find ourselves in.
Let me just say, Sam Donaldson and me in the Reagan White House, we were pretty tough on the White House press secretaries, and we never had our religious beliefs questioned or were lectured on what we should ask.